Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Online Business Made Easy podcast. Today, we have an awesome guest over here, Sheila Farragher-Gemma. She is originally from Ireland and moved to the United States. And first of all, let me welcome Sheila and welcome to our first episode of the podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm so psyched I'm number one.
Yeah. So, first of all, I'll give you a brief introduction first, and then the stage is yours.
Okay.
So, as I said, Sheila is originally from Ireland and moved to the United States. Through her company Connected Sponsors, she helps event promoters monetize their events by building long-standing relationships and partnerships with sponsoring companies. Some of the events she promotes are Thrive, Archangel, ProfitCon, Perfect Life Retreat, MFA Live, Disruptive Innovation, and NorCal Fitness Summit. Sheila has more than 2 decades of experience and has successfully started and profitably exited multiple ventures. Today, Sheila works with event owners and their teams to find and manage strategic partners and sponsors and streamline their business and improve their bottom line. She has appeared on CBS Nightly News, Fox 25, New England Cable News, and many more. Thanks again, Sheila, for joining our podcast. So, Sheila,
Thank you for
we would
having
like
me.
to know, yes. So, we would like to know more about you. How did you enter this business? How you basically started with, started basically why you wanted to start your own business and stuff like that. We would like to know more
Sure,
about it.
absolutely. Yeah. So I came to the States right after college, and I really didn't think I was going to be here for very long. So my big fear was I'd meet an American and get stuck over here, which is pretty much what happened. We got married and started to have children. And when I was pregnant with my first child, I knew I didn't want to go back to work. At the time, I was working in biotech, and I knew that I wanted to have the freedom to just be home with her and to just be really a big part of her life. And I knew that having a job wouldn't afford me the amount of freedom that I wanted. So I had to figure out something to do because I also couldn't just live on nothing. So we had to figure out money. So I actually ended up starting a business. It was doing remanufactured toner cartridges, which is kind of odd. And it was before those even became a thing. And through that business, then I expanded out and started doing laser printer repair as well. And I ended up selling the business about 8 years in, but that kind of was the initial step that kind of got me going on my entrepreneurial journey. Through that, I had joined BNI, which is Business Network International, and that had really helped me grow my business. And I met a gentleman there called Jeremy Shapiro, who was at the time in IT. So he helped companies with their computer systems and their IT, and I helped with their printers. So it was kind of like a good match. So we started doing a lot of kind of business referrals back and forth and got to know each other. We were both very interested in investing in real estate, and we started doing that and launched a company around that, and then launched several other companies. So it's just kind of been a progression since then of different companies and different things. And, when you look at them all separately, it's kind of like, how did you get from there to there? But there is like a thread kind of tying them all together in a weird way. But yeah, definitely prefer the entrepreneurial side of things for sure.
And how did you end up entering into, strategic partnerships and event sponsorships?
Yeah, so I in any of the businesses we had, I was kind of the one who did the networking, who met people who made the strategic partnerships, who brought in speakers to speak on our stages and vice versa. So I was always kind of doing that piece of it. Towards before, like right before I started Connected Sponsors, I was in a business with a woman called Deanna Rogers, and it was called Affiliate Mastermind Group. So we had a lot of affiliates and people who did JVs and things like that as part of our group. And we'd run an event twice a year for them, which is just really for networking, getting to know each other, teaching best practices, that kind of stuff. And towards the end of that business, Deanna got wooed away. Digital marketer had their eyes on her, and they brought her into run their events. They have a huge event every year called Traffic and Conversion, and probably about 30 or 40 other events that she runs every year. The woman is amazing. So when she went to work for Digital Marketer, she asked me if I could help out with sponsorship, which I did for the first couple of years. And then people just saw what I was doing and asked me if I could do it for them. So it wasn't like a planned business that I sat down and says, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this. It was just kind of happened organically, and it's been great. I love it.
Okay. And one of the interesting fact that you mentioned, you are part of BNI. I'm
Yes.
also part of BNI.
Oh yeah. BNI is amazing. It truly is international.
Yes.
It's everywhere.
Correct.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. So one of the thing I wanted to ask you, so basically which types of businesses can benefit from hosting an event?
Probably all kinds of businesses, really. Certainly businesses where there is a need for education. So if the business owner is teaching what they do, or if it's about something that people need to be educated on, it's a great way of doing it like that. But you can also do appreciation events where it's just, you want to bring your clients together and bring them some value, just kind of create, deepen those connections with them. So, it's kind of something any business can do, but they do want to just be cautious because running an event is quite expensive. So they want to make sure that they have their ROI in it, or that they have, that it's worth doing for them. They may not be a monetary ROI. If it's an appreciation event, sometimes it's very helpful to just kind of be in front of your clients and, show them kind of a good time and just build that relationship even deeper. So depending, it's kind of broad, depending on the business, but there's no reason why any business couldn't, have events.
Right. Now, one of the other fact that you mentioned that events are costly to manage and costly to host. But right now, a lot of people are hosting virtual events. So does that really reduce the cost, or still the cost is same, or the cost in other factors have increased in hosting?
Yeah, so it doesn't exactly reduce the cost. So you're not paying for, it depends. It depends again on the size of the event. Like there's over in the States now, a lot of speakers have these like big virtual stages, which involves a lot of technology and they can have events of, I think Tony Robbins just had an event for like over 10,000 people. He built out a virtual stage just to do it, just to do that. So there is, it's kind of a different beast, but there is like a lot of cost involved in it as well. It's maybe not the same cost. You're probably not paying, $200 for a gallon of coffee, but you have the technology and you need the expertise to run that. So it's kind of a different type of a thing. But like we could call this an event. There's just me and you, and this is pretty much free except for what we're already paying for internet and electricity. So there's a lot of ways of doing an event and reaching out. It doesn't have to be some big, fancy, expensive thing either.
Correct. Plus, technology is a big point of failure. I mean, you need to have, all the IT infrastructure, all telecommunication lines in place, and one failure may lead to, whole event going down or something like that. Maybe.
Exactly. So you want to make sure all of that is in place, and it's in ways it's more complicated because I think it's kind of new. I mean, people really had to make a huge pivot back in March of last year. So we're now in we're in June. Wow, time is flying. Of 2021. Back in March of 2020, when things really started to shut down. I remember being on calls with other event planners and just kind of like, what do we do? How do we get around this? And there's a lot of people kind of stepped up and created these opportunities to do virtual. So the industry has like just blown up in the last year because of that. But I think I don't think the industry is going to go back to what it was. I think there's always going to be a virtual component now, because for attendees to attend virtually, it's so much easier. They're not getting on a plane, they're not staying in a hotel, they're doing it from home. It can be hard as well because they're doing it from home. So there's all the other distractions that are, commonplace day-to-day distractions at home. So it's hard to carve out time and kind of put a sign on the walls or on your doors saying, do not disturb, I'm doing something right now. But I think probably going forward, I feel like there's going to be like a hybrid kind of component for any of them going forward.
Correct.
Yeah.
Great. So Another question, I mean, this is kind of a main question. How do you find ideal sponsors? What are the things that you look for in an ideal partner? How you find out that there is a strategic relationship between us and the
Yeah.
sponsor?
Yeah. So I think that the first thing you have to actually take a step back from that and kind of ask yourself, what do you have to offer the sponsors? So, and I'm talking about an event, but this can work for anything else, podcast, a newsletter, whatever it is that you're trying to get sponsored. So you kind of have to look at what kind of a group have you gathered, who are your audience, and what's their avatar. So you kind of need to dig down into that to figure out who they are, because that's basically what you're selling a sponsor is access to this group of people.
Right.
So sometimes and it's not so much like, just demographics. We don't really care how old they are, how much money they're making, or so. That's kind of important, but you really want to get down to kind of like the true, flesh and blood of the thing. Another podcast, John Lee Dumas does a podcast, and he talks about his avatar, whose name is Jimmy. And I can just recite this because A, it resonates with me, and B, it's a very simple and clear. So Jimmy is a 40-year-old guy who works at a job that he doesn't like. He drives in every morning for 45 minutes into work, listening to a podcast. He works for about 10 hours, not very engaged in what he's doing. He finally gets back in his car, drives home for about 35 minutes, listening to another podcast, gets into his house, and he immediately is inundated with, helping his wife, getting the kids fed, getting them to bed, doing homework, all that kind of stuff. And finally, at the end of that entire day, he has like an hour or two that he can carve out for himself to work on his dream, and his dream is to become an entrepreneur. So once you have that clear of an idea of who your people are, then you can start saying, well, okay, so if Jimmy's dream is to become an entrepreneur, what are some of the resources that he needs to get there? Right. So, you as the speaker, you can teach, whatever you're teaching, but what about some of the other things? Does he need software? Does he need a CRM? Does he need merchant processing? Does he need to know about Facebook ads or whatever it is, right. And then those are your type of sponsors that you can start bringing in. And for somebody running an event, especially if they're teaching what they do, one of the easiest ways to do it is actually something I learned in BNI. I don't know if you guys have visitor days over there, but we used to do visitor days about 3 or 4 times a year. And they had one technique called follow your checkbook. So they'd ask you to go look and see who you're paying every month, like paying bills to other businesses, and invite them into BNI. And I use that same technique with event owners, especially when they're teaching what they do, is say, okay, so what are the resources you're using? And sometimes it takes a few minutes, because if I asked you to just like this, like name off all your bills, you're probably going to miss it. Oh, I forgot about this one.
Right.
It takes a couple of minutes, but like if you dig into that and figure that out. So if you're teaching what you do, and these are the tools you use, these are the tools your students are going to need as well. I kind of imagine, like, again, going back to the event in a ballroom, it's like you're in the ballroom, you're learning a certain thing, and then you walk out, and it's like walking into a mall of all these different stores, but there are all the different things that you need to help you move forward in your business.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, you need to do your homework, do research, find out the ideal avatar of your customer, and then going for the sponsors, rather than finding the person who has a lot of money and then bring him as a sponsor.
You can do it that way, but it's kind of short term, because you really need everyone to win. So when I think of, you have a sponsor, you have a host, or an event planner, or an event owner, or a podcast owner, or whatever, and then you have the audience. So all three have to kind of win. They all have to kind of get something out of the relationship. So the sponsor is getting access to your audience. The audience is getting a bunch of resources that they didn't have before. And you, as the person who's putting it together, you're bringing value to your audience. So they're going to want to stay with you more because you bring them value. And you're also getting paid by the sponsor. So you're helping to monetize what you're doing as well. So, and all of those components need to be there. Because if somebody's not winning or not getting something out of the deal, they're probably not going to stick around.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And finding a right sponsor is, very good, but getting a wrong sponsor is also a bad idea, because I sponsored one of the event in an educational institute, and the thing was that they forgot to invite me for the event. And
The what, sorry?
they forgot to invite me for the event. They
Oh
didn't
my
send me
goodness.
the invitation. Yeah.
Okay, that's not good.
That's not good. I mean, I lost the money
Yeah,
and didn't get any return from it.
yeah.
So, I mean, do you have any story to share? Like, what is
Yeah, I've
pitfall
heard
and
about things like
adversary?
that happening as well. I guess it's human nature that, like, once you get that check, especially if you get the check a long time before your event, it's kind of human nature to kind of forget about it and not make sure. So you want to make sure that, like, if you're not doing it yourself, that you have a sponsor coordinator who's just kind of dotting all the I's and crossing the T's and making sure that, you know, your list of deliverables that you were promised, that they're all being fulfilled. That you're invited to the event. That's like a big piece of it. I think
Yes.
sometimes people think of sponsorship of they're just, you know, they think, oh, great, let's get some sponsors because this event's going to be expensive. And they don't think beyond themselves, which is okay. I mean, we're all kind of selfish people, but you kind of got to think about the sponsor and what they're bringing in, because if it's done properly and if you show that sponsor a really good time, and you help them, you know, achieve their goal of getting leads or getting sales or whatever it is that they're looking to get out of the event, the sponsor's going to come back year after year after year. I mean, next time you go to them, they'll be like, oh, absolutely. Like, for example, this company that you sponsored who forgot to invite you, if they come back to you next year and say, hey, you know, you want to play again? I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you really have to think of it in a what's in it for me, but what's in it for me for the other person, not for you. So what's in it for the sponsor? What are they going to get out of this? How can we really sweeten that deal so that it's just a total no-brainer for them? And a lot of the time, it's just having a conversation with the sponsor as well. It's like, you know, what's your best way to get in front of people? What can we do to make sure that you get, like, you maximize this event for yourself? And then just kind of trying to make that stuff happen.
Correct. So what are the responsibilities of the sponsor in that case? I mean, apart from providing the money for the event.
So they need to show up and be on as well. Like, I mean, I can tell you stories of, you know, walking by a sponsor booth and someone's sitting there with their face like in a bowl of food or in their phone, or just, you know, it's like, there's a saying in Ireland that's when the sun shines, make hay. And this is the same thing. While you're at the event, you kind of need to be at the event 24/7. So, you know, turn up early, be there and ready when people come out to visit you. You know, network in the bars, invite people to go for lunch, have a conversation. You know, just you really want to make the most of it, because again, talking about live events, but it's the same for anything. Once that time is over, that time is over, and the person is now moved on to the next thing that they're doing, and they're not thinking about you anymore. So it's really important that you try and form the foundation of those relationships so that you can move forward.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So is there any way, I mean, how event hosts can leverage the credibility of the sponsor? How they can use, you know, the built-up brand of the sponsorer?
So it gets them known, especially if they're you know, more of a startup company, but they're sponsoring an event that like some big companies are sponsoring, so they can tie their name to that. You know, it's if you think of if you were to build a shopping mall, you know, you're going to want your anchors in there first. So like your big department stores, like, will take up the big spaces and kind of the four corners, and then the little stores make their way in between, you know. So it's selling sponsorship. If you can get some of those anchor sponsors in there first, that helps then, you know, because then I approach you and I say, well, company X is sponsoring. You're like, oh, wow, if they're sponsoring, maybe I should, you know, or maybe I should look at this more seriously. And then for the smaller companies that are growing, you know, it's the association with this company that you guys are at the same thing, speaking at the same thing, but it's also the ability to now network. Like, a lot of the sponsors form these friendships because they're, you know, there's again, talking events, but it's going to be similar in other things. There's uptime and downtime. So sometimes in events, if everyone's in the ballroom, they're going to be sitting out there for an hour or two on their own. So that's the time to work the booths yourself and network with the other people who are there. And, you know, you can start, like, I've seen sponsors, there's one group of sponsors that I know of particularly that seem to do the same events. and they like meet up for dinner the night before the event. They will walk people back and forth to their booths. It's like this person isn't really a good fit for me, but they'd be a great fit for you, or this person's doing this with me and you can also help them with this piece. So there's a lot of referrals going on, and they know each other, they're friends. They talk about like if I call up one of them for an event, the person I call up will probably say, oh, we could bring in these other 3 companies as well, which is great to kind of, if you're able to mine a or like that.
Right, that's right. So for hosting an event, do you need to reach a certain size, or a small business can host an event and get sponsors for them?
Again, it depends on the event and what the sponsor is looking for. I'd say kind of a rule of thumb with the sponsors I've worked with, they like to, if they're going to a live event, they like to have at least about 350 people attending the event. But the caveat to that is, if you have a mastermind that you're actually going to be part of the mastermind, you're going to be the only sponsor, and it's like 30 kind of high worth people. I hate saying high worth people, it sounds like, but it's kind of, 30 people that are like bigger businesses doing a lot of business that, even getting 1 or 2 of them as a client would be very valuable, or even just building the relationship for the referrals would be valuable. So it depends on, again, what the sponsor needs. And a lot of times I see people put together like sponsorship packages, and they kind of mix stuff up and, do a kind of an ABC, high, medium and low level. But they never really talk to the sponsors and say, well, what would make this a no-brainer for you? What would you like to see in it? Or what do you need to have happen to make it attractive for you to come sponsor? So just having that open conversation and really trying to, get them what they need or what they're looking for.
Absolutely. And one of the questions that I would like to ask is, we have a lot of web developer agency owners and digital marketing agency owners in my community here.
Yeah.
So what advice do you will give them? Should they, is hosting an event a right solution for them? Should they go for hosting an event, or is it useful for web development agencies and digital marketing agencies?
It is. Again, you want to really kind of investigate the event and see, like, if you're going to run your own event, you want to see, first of all, what is your goal of running the event? What is it that you're looking to happen at the end in an ideal world? And then see if that's something that you can do at a good ROI. Is it going to cost you more money than it was worth to make the connections or get the new clients or whatever it is? So it's hard to kind of give a blanket answer to that as well. Like, it's going to be individual. I know that people who sponsor events do very well with it. It's great exposure for them. I know some companies will go, and it's not even about the ROI. It's just because they know they have so many of their clients at the event that they get to just like have more face time with them and build that relationship more as well. So it really just depends, I guess, is the answer.
Right. There is no one single answer. You have to investigate.
Exactly.
You have to do research. Yeah. Absolutely. But basically, if you do your research, find right sponsors, it's going to be great guns. You will have a lot of opportunities. And
the more thought in the beginning makes for a better result at the end, rather than just kind of jump into it and then halfway through say, oh, hang on a minute.
It's like people say that, if you want to cut a tree, spend half the time sharpening the axe.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. This was, I think, a great opportunity speaking with you. Would you like to cover anything else that I might have missed? Would you like to tell something to my audience?
I think that was a lot of it, really. I do have a gift, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
It goes back to that follow the checkbook. I use a lot of a software called One Pager. So it's a PDF that is editable. And I have like a 15-minute training around the follow your checkbook type learning, so that you can go in, you can start filling out like for yourself all the different pieces. So if they wanted to get that, it's at connectedsponsors.com/finding sponsors. So that's CONNECTEDSPONSORS.com/finding sponsors. So they're welcome to get that, and then that kind of gets them in touch with me as well.
Right.
I usually send out stuff, and I'll be sending out this podcast.
Absolutely.
I usually send out different things as well, to try and help people, do what I do.
Right. So people who are live, I would like to tell you that the link Sheila just mentioned is going on ticker in the video, and those who will watch this video later on, they will find it in the YouTube videos description and in the podcast description. So do go ahead, download that one pager. It's going to be very helpful to you. So
Perfect.
again, Sheila, thank you for joining us. It was really great speaking with you. You shared a lot of value with our audience.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate being on here, especially since it's your first podcast. It's like, I don't think I've ever been the inaugural of anything, so it's very exciting.
Absolutely. It was really great having you here.
Awesome.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed our Online Business Made podcast. This was our first episode, and we will have a lot of episodes going forward. Do join our Facebook group at pps.click/OBME. The link is on the screen you are right now. So thank you, Sheila, and let's connect soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Thank you.